Welcome to the latest episode of The Speaking Citizen. I am Mehru Jafar. My guest today is Vipul Rikhi, a Kabir Panthi. Vipul claims to have learned love from Kabir, who remains not just a person for him, but an idea. Kabir Das, as we know, lived in the 15th century. So why do we talk about him today? Perhaps Vipul will tell us the relevance of Kabir in this day and age. It seems every time there is a shortage of love in the air, the world remembers Kabir. I will ask Vipul what Kabir teaches us about our world that is dealing with so much of hate and war and is allowing humanity to be so dangerously divided in the name of religion. Vipul recently released a book on Kabir called Drunk on Love. We will talk about what is new in yet another book on Kabir. Vipul sings the songs of Kabir around the country. So let us begin by asking him to share his soulful voice with us here and now. First, Vipul, let us hear you sing your heart out. Then I will ask you the first question of the day. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mehru. Thank you. I'll share a song with you. I've got my instrument here. It's a tambura.
Oh,
it's a folk instrument. And I'll share part of a song because the whole song will be too long. And it's a song on love, since we are on the theme of love. And it's a very well-known song of Kabir. And in this song, he says, "Haman hai ishq mastana, haman ko hoshiari kya." He says, I'm drunk on love. So what have I got to do with cleverness? Being clever, being smart, being cool. Rahe azad ya jag se, aman dunya se yari. I am free in this world. So I am free of all these relationships of interest, calculations, and so on. जो बिछड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हमें, हमन को इंतजारी क्या. Those who are separated from the beloved, they wander from place to place, looking, seeking. But my beloved, my truth is in me. So I'm not waiting for anyone or anything. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. रहे आजादियां जग से, रहे आजादी जग से, रहे आजादियां जग से, हम दुनिया की हारी क्या. हमने इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हमें, हमारा यार है हमें, हमन को इंतजारी क्या. हमन इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. हमन इश्क मस्ताना.
क्या बात. So beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is, what is this idea of Kabir? Because you've said in the past that you look upon Kabir not just as a person, but as an idea. And your first memory of the day Kabir entered your life.
Well, literally the first memory is, of course, from school because we had to learn the dohas of Kabir. And the one that was most drilled down our throats was "Kaal kare so aaj kare so ab, palne parle hue bhi, bahuri karega kab." And at that time, it's only used by teachers and parents to, oh, you must do your duty, you must do your homework, etc. So it sort of turns you off Kabir. But Kabir really came alive for me later, especially when I heard the folk Kabir in this raw and direct form, just a tambura and some percussion, many people singing together. And that energy of Kabir is what I call this idea, which has now been alive for over 500 years because Kabir lived in the 15th century and he didn't read or write. In his own words, he says, I never held a pen in my hand, I never held ink or paper. I said everything I had to say with my tongue. That's what he says in his own words. So he was a low caste weaver. He had no access to reading and writing. But his words have survived for over 500 years because there is now a whole tradition because people sing his songs and people listen to his songs. So it's very much an embodied tradition. It's not an intellectual tradition. It's an embodied tradition passing from one person to another person, from one generation to another generation, which has stayed alive for over 500 years. It's quite remarkable if you think about it. And it has become a stream in which people keep adding. So there are songs of Kabir in which there are trains and guns and cannons and ticket collectors and so on, which is of course anachronistic because at that time all this was not there. But so it's obvious that people have added songs to the stream and used Kabir's name and said Kahe Kabir Suno Bhai Sahab. And people feel that they own this tradition, so they feel free to contribute to it. They feel free to modify it. So if you listen to Kabir songs in different parts of the country, the words are slightly different, the tunes are different, the dialect becomes different. So in Rajasthan, Kabir is sung in Marwadi. In Madhya Pradesh, Kabir is sung in Malvi. So it's very much a people-owned tradition, and that is its power. It's amazingly democratic. Everyone can participate. Everyone can contribute. Everyone can become Kabir. That's what they say in the folk tradition. I too am Kabir. When I sing Kabir, I am Kabir. And this is the idea which is so powerful because it allows people access. And if you look at the historical context, people were not allowed access to scripture, to temples, and to certain spaces by caste or by religion. So it allows people access and it allows people a voice. And in this sense, this idea has become so powerful for that reason.
But if this idea of Kabir is so powerful and so popular, why does it seem unable to counter the hate that is being encouraged today?
Well, I think it's not like, this, it doesn't work like this idea is there. Of course, the Buddha was there much before and he spoke about peace. And so it's not like, or Christ came and you saw what has happened in the West with Christ and so on. So all these figures have come and gone and they've left their message. Now it's up to the people how many and how much we uh, uh, mold ourselves in this message. So, of course, I think human life and the world is designed in a certain way, which is uh, that it is ridden with conflict, it is ridden with disputes and hatred and so on. And the whole journey of human life is to overcome this in oneself. And the more individuals that are able to overcome these, because Kabir says we carry all these things in ourselves too. It's not like someone else is a bad person and I am the angel. Kabir questions himself. He questions outer authority, but he also questions himself. And so until we question ourselves, it's easy to look at the world and say, there are so many things wrong with the world, which there are. But the journey begins here. We have to simultaneously work on our own hatred and our own propensity to conflict and on the outer conflicts that exist. You see this in from microcosm to macrocosm. You take a housing society in any city, it will be full of conflict. You take a WhatsApp group in any subject, even spirituality, people will start fighting there. So it's part of human nature because the ego is so strong, and self importance is such a strong factor, and needing to feel respected or needing to feel powerful or esteemed or whatever. These are such strong motivating factors that it takes effort and awareness to overcome these things in oneself. The more one overcomes these in oneself, the more one is able to spread peace. Uh, I'll give you one doha of Kabir about this. He says, आग लगी संसार में झरझर पड़े अंगार संत ना होते जगत में तो जल मरता संसार. So we think they are doing nothing, but these few people are holding the world up. We are still alive. Humanity is still alive. We haven't killed ourselves entirely. And human life and human endeavor still goes on. And it's because of this energy still exists and love still exists. If it didn't, then it would all have been over long ago.
Exactly. So what is it that Kabir exactly says about the wisdom of love? You know, what is how is his definition of the wisdom of love different to the way maybe you or I practice or look at love?
Yeah, so I mean, in popular culture, I think love is looked at as something which will fulfill us and which will relieve us of all our, misery and so on, and we'll finally be happy. Love for Kabir is actually the something quite contrary to this, because he says, for example, ये तो घर है प्रेम का खाला का घर ना है शीश काट भाव धरे तब बैठे घर. He says this is the house of love. It's not your aunt's house. She won't give you sweets and tea and pamper you. This is not that kind of house. Cut off your head, put it on the floor. Then you may enter the house of love. So it takes everything we have to enter this house of love. But once we manage to enter it, overcoming what I said earlier, all this ego, pride, need for respect, power, need to dominate someone else, etc. Once all these things are overcome in oneself, then you may enter the domain of love. And that power is something else because it sustains everything. According to Kabir and other poets, love is the thing that sustains everything. So when, for example, in the song that I just sang, so he says that this love exists within me. It's not dependent on a circumstance, or it's not dependent on another person, whether they say yes to me or no to me. That is not that kind of love. This love belongs to me, and that power, we see that the words of Kabir are alive even 500 years ago because of this one. Otherwise, they wouldn't be alive.
So do you think you've managed to enter the room or the world of love, or are you still on the threshold, or where are you in this journey of love as defined by?
I would say I've had glimpses. I'm not there all the time. I'm not in that space. It's a very tough space. So I would say while singing, why in certain moments in nature or in other moments during meditation, I have had glimpses of that dimension. I would call it a whole other dimension. So I've had glimpses of that dimension, but to stay there all the time, that is a journey. I think it's a long journey. So I'm not there yet.
So in popular perception, love implies ecstasy, happiness forever. What is the toughest and the most difficult part of remaining in love?
Yeah, I think the mind and the ego are the biggest barriers. Because like Kabir says and the Sufi poets say, love is an intoxication. You lose yourself. And you then become musk. Now, the problem that arises in human nature, which seems to be designed in this way, is that our ego and our mind come in the way. So my idea of myself, if that is threatened by anything, by an ideology, by another religion, or by a caste, or by whatever, or by my neighbor, it can be a personal dispute, then I react with, aggressiveness, defensiveness. I'm ready to fight, and I lose that state. So this factor, it's driven by fear and by desire, like wanting something at the cost of someone else, or fear of not getting something, or fear of my comfort being disturbed, and so on, or my power being taken away. So fear, desire, these are all factors of the mind, of the ego, and they constantly take us away because they divide us. So Kabir says in the same song which I sang for you, in the end he says, Kabira ishq ka maka dui ko dur kar dil se. Kabir got drunk on love, but how? By removing this feeling of two from his heart, separation, you and me, male and female, high and low, east and west, Hindu and Muslim, upper and lower. So we are caught up in these dualities all the time. We divide ourselves. And as long as we are in this divided state, we cannot love.
So, what is the most impractical thing about being perpetually in love? How important is it? Uh, uh, there are moments when you have to tell a bully that enough is enough. So, but if you're practicing only love, how do you take care of the fears that actually exist in life?
That's a very good question. It's a very relevant and practical question, which everyone confronts at some point. And I don't think there is one answer to this. I think we have examples. For example, Kabir himself faced persecution during his time because he angered all the power brokers. He spoke against the Hindu priests and the Muslim priests, against the Pandits and the Mullahs, and he had to face persecution in various forms. So in the book, I mentioned these stories, these legends where he faces persecution. And the thing that seems to carry him through is this unshakable faith and love. And we see also in our closer to our time, we see, for example, Gandhi. He had nothing, right? He had no weapons, but he had that powerful conviction. And Buddha also in his time faced persecution and opposition. So that will inevitably come. What I feel personally is that the stronger we become inside with the power of love, not with the physical strength or weapons or any such thing, but the stronger we can become within with the power of love, we get this strength, and we are able to also bear consequences without fear. I think the game is of fear. Once we lose our fear, we are able to act very different.
So love in popular perception also implies intimacy, being alone. What is the role of love in public life? And why do public figures often resort to hate and divisiveness to remain in power instead of love?
I think as a culture and as a species so far, we are very much in thrall of power. Even though love sustains us, we are not aware of that. We are very much in thrall of power. So our politicians and our whoever is in charge is only reflecting that. In each small measure, everyone is seeking their own little called pocket of power. Each individual, you will see whether it's on social media through followers, or whether it's on your neighborhood through your car parking, or whatever it is. Everyone wants their little territory, their little power. That also seems to be part of human nature, and the politicians reflect that. So at a larger scale, they think, everyone thinks that this is the aim of human life to acquire more wealth, to acquire more prestige, to acquire more power, to acquire more pleasure. But in the end, we see that if we know these people, for example, if you know people who are powerful or successful personally, you will know that they are still unhappy. They may project another image, but having met people who are powerful, famous, successful, wealthy, whatever it is, you can see that they are still unhappy. It doesn't bring happiness. So the role of love in public life is uh, love is always present. The more we invoke it in public life, for example, music and poetry are one way, art is another way, in which we keep invoking this state of love. It refreshes and fulfills people. That's what I've seen in my own experience of sharing Kabir's music with people, Kabir's poetry with people. It's deeply refreshing, deeply fulfilling, and it gives people the strength to then move in different directions in a slow way. So this aspect needs to remain in public life. We can never expect that it will become the overarching or all reigning uh, aspect, because humans are not there yet as a race. As a species, once we are there, then it will become. But as so far we are not there, and that is just the truth. We are all in thrall of power. So we need some balancing force. And you see that with so much obsession with power, but even a little bit of love makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. So, Drunk on Love is your latest book. There's over the 500 years since Kabir existed, there's so much of literature available and books available on Kabir. So, what's so new in your book?
I bring a very folk and people oriented perspective. This is the Kabir that I've encountered among the people who sing and listen to Kabir. So first of all, it's not an academic Kabir. It's not an academic scholarly approach to Kabir, which is fair in its own place, but this is a different approach. And it's also not a devotional approach to Kabir. So some followers will, so you will either get these two camps. Either it's the devotional approach to Kabir, where Kabir is like God, or Kabir is this, great saint whom we should, worship, or Kabir is a historical figure and only, and you then try to analyze based on historic. All that is fair, but what this is trying to do is something different, which is how Kabir is a friend and how Kabir walks with us. He invites us to walk with him. And he says, Kabira khada bazaar mein liye lukati haat, jo ghar ja rahe apna, chalo hamare saath.
Yeah,
he doesn't want followers. He wants you to walk with him, shoulder to shoulder, side by side. If you can burn your house down, you can walk. So it's very simply written, it's very accessible, and yet it's very deep in the sense of it goes into the meanings of his songs and message without simplifying and yet remaining very accessible. I think this kind of a book is not available actually. So whenever people would ask me for a recommendation on a book, I would struggle because they were either academic books or they were very devotional books. But this kind of book where we treat Kabir as a friend and yet with a very deep message and go into the depth of his message, and yet in a very accessible, without trying to complicate it or over theorize it, because he himself was contemptuous of over intellectualizing and over theorizing. So that is the effort that this book has made.
Do you think through this book or in any other way, this message to the people in power can be conveyed that you can enjoy power without encouraging hate? You can be in power with being in love with the people who put you into power. What is the need to lynch and to kill and to encourage hate in your own home?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. What is the need to do this? But human beings don't seem to be very rational in that way. Don't think in a rational way. You can see conflicts all around the world currently going on, and it's the same everywhere. Where this is a common human problem, as I see it. What uh, this book this book is a drop in the ocean. The music that I sing is, they're all drops in the ocean. If we bring enough drops to the ocean, the nature of the ocean will change. And I think all of us have to keep making our own contribution. And if we manage to touch someone, whether they are in power or they're not in power, maybe they will be in power tomorrow. We don't know. So our job is only to keep putting out this message. Maybe we touch someone who may be in power tomorrow or who's already in power. That all that is not in our control. What is my responsibility is to share this dimension, which I have felt and which I know is much more fulfilling than mere power. And because power is not fulfilling, it's just you get even more frustrated and you feel like this is not giving me what I thought it will give me. And that's a very frustrating place to be. I've seen people in that place. And that then they become more desperate and more. So it's a cycle, it's a vicious cycle. I think to spread this fragrance, and wherever it reaches, it will do its job.
Good. So we conclude. We are concluding without finding a clue as to the need of some people, especially in power, to enjoy encouraging hate. But before we let you go, Vipul, why don't you give us another song?
Sure. So this song says, "Go slowly, go slowly. जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले." All these people who are rushing after power, after success, after wealth, after whatever, it's just asking us to slow down and look into ourselves.
Lovely.
जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा हल्के गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. हाँ गाड़ी मेरी रंग रंगीन पहिया है लाल गुलाल. हाँ गाड़ी मेरी रंग रंगीन पहिया है लाल गुलाल. अरे हाँकण वाली खेल छबील में बैठन वाला राम भैया. हल्के गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी. हाँ गाड़ी अटकी रेत में और मजल पड़ी है दूर. हाँ गाड़ी अटकी रेत में और मजल पड़ी है दूर. अरे धर्मी धर्मी पार उतर जन पापी चकनाचूर भैया. हल्के गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाँको मेरे राम गाड़ी. मेरे राम गाड़ी. मेरे राम गाड़ी.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
So beautiful, so beautiful. And thank you so much for talking to the Citizen. And
it's a pleasure.
All the very best. Continue to spread.
Thank you so much.